welcome to Ridgeline High School's DWING podcast. I am today's host, Karma Gentry, and today we are joined by a very special guest who has served the people of Washington State's 5th Congressional District as a representative in the United States Congress since 2004. She is the 202nd woman ever elected to serve in the United States House of Representatives and the first woman to give birth 3 times while in office. That is remarkable. During her time in the United States Congress, she has held numerous leadership positions and is the current chairwoman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. She is recognized as an advocate and champion for the disability community, having written and passed multiple pieces of legislation focused on improving the lives of people with disabilities. Please welcome Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to the podcast and spending some time with you this afternoon.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us. Our format for today's podcast is going to look like the students in Mr. Shilba's class asking some questions. They've all prepared a specific question to ask you, and we'll have a little rotation where 4 more students will join us. If there are any more questions at the end and we have any more time, there will also be classes from Mrs. Bergman's civic class that we can ask. So our first question is going to be from Michael Pope.
Why did you decide to get into politics?
Well, that's a great question. Great place to start. I got involved in politics right out of college. I was working on a family friend's campaign, and he needed a campaign manager. And he was running for state representative, and he asked if I would come work on his campaign. And ultimately, he won, and he offered me a job. That was in Kettle Falls, which is a little bit north of here. It's about 80 miles north of Spokane, along the Columbia River. And I ultimately decided to get involved in politics and was to make a difference. And working on his campaign, working for him when he was elected as state rep, I saw every day where he was making a difference in people's lives and for our community. And I too, just as more I got involved, the more I really wanted to be a part of that. And I believe in the values of freedom and opportunity for all. The United States of America has been this land that has given a lot of people hope and opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise, and wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I could to ensure that the opportunities I've been given were made available to others.
So when you were given that opportunity, were you ever interested in politics beforehand?
Well, my dad had always been involved in politics, so he probably planted the seed. So my dad, my family owned an orchard and fruit stand along the Columbia River in Kettle Falls, and my dad was involved in the Farm Bureau, and he was president of the Kettle Falls Chamber of Commerce, and he was also the chairman of the Stevens County Republican Party. So he was involved in politics, and I grew up marching in parades for other candidates, and so he certainly planted some seeds in my mind. Yet I had said I didn't want to get involved in politics. So it's an example of never say never, right?
Yeah.
And when I had the opportunity to work on our family friend Bob Morton's campaign after I graduated from college, I saw a side of politics that really I thought was a positive, where you are involved in the community, you get to know people, you understand the issues and the challenges that people are facing, and you get to be a part of solving those problems and trying to help people have an opportunity for a better life.
Yeah, mentioning those highlights is perfect because that leads right into our second question with Annie Farley.
What are the best things and worst things about being in a Congress?
Oh, yes. Well, the best part of serving in Congress has been the people that I get to meet. And that's every day. It's being here for this podcast and meeting you, Annie, as well as so many others. I get to meet people that inspire me every single day. And I've through the years, I've really wished more people could tag along with me and be able to just see the best of what's happening in Eastern Washington, because I get to see that every day. I started my day today with the Arc of Spokane and Amazon, and we were celebrating Amazon's commitment to providing more technology, more iPads and technology for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, right? And I get to do those kinds of things every day. I get to see and meet people that have ideas for, And then I went and visited this lady who started a business doing ultrasounds for detecting breast cancer, because mammograms don't always work if it is a dense breast. So she found this technology and said, we need to have this in Spokane, and she started a business. And so she's helping women detect cancer early on. Those are just 2 examples today, and I get to meet people every day that really are inspiring to me, and that has been the best part of the job. Now, the worst part of the job probably has been the discourse. Unfortunately, we find ourselves right now as a society where we're very quick to tear each other down and point out what's wrong. So I think probably the biggest challenge right now is building trust. Trust has been broken, and unfortunately we see that a lot. So that's probably the biggest challenge.
Would you say that you witness that often, or it comes into direct contact with you often?
Yeah, I think I see that a lot.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Our next question, however, as we move on, will be from Mike Fox.
What do you wish teenagers knew about the government?
Okay, well, I wish people knew that their voice matters. I get concerned sometimes when I hear so many people, including young people, teenagers who say, oh, I don't think anyone really hears me, or that my voice matters, because your voice absolutely matters. And you should never underestimate the influence of a few people on this world, that you can make a difference. You're making a difference through this podcast. And so I would encourage young people, teenagers, that your voice matters, that you are the next generation of business leaders, of entrepreneurs, the people that are going to take their ideas as to how to improve our lives. You're the next generation of teachers and school superintendents, and you're the next generation of people that are going to figure out what needs to happen in our community. And so to be inspired by this nation where it's about we the people. It's the people are at the center of this government, and each one of us makes a difference. And what you do matters, what you say matters, and to get involved. That we just had an election in the city of Spokane. Half the people didn't vote, and so your voice matters, your vote matters, and I would want young people to know that they can make a difference. And I would also want you to know that I would love to have you come intern in my office. So once, it's usually for college age, but we have internships in the Spokane office and the DC office, on the committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, which I'm the chairman of right now, and would love to have you come and intern and be able to see firsthand how the congressional office works, the people that are calling the office and helping us in the office. It's a great opportunity, no matter what you decide to do with your life, to have that firsthand experience in the congressional office and see how legislation happens and the interaction between a representative and their people.
Thank you.
That sounds so fascinating. If someone were wanting to follow up with that internship, where could they find that information?
You can go to my website, mcmorris.house.gov, and there's information on the website, or you can contact the office, and we'd be happy to send you that information.
Wonderful.
I might also mention we do a high school art competition every year, if you're not aware of that. So this is in the United States House of Representatives. There's one piece of art for each representative, so for each district in America. So there's 435 total, because there's 435 representatives, but every year I get to host a congressional art contest. So if you have artists here at Ridgeline that would be interested and participated, we'd love to have you, and you get an all-expensive paid trip to DC, you and one other person, to be acknowledged for winning the Congressional Art Contest, and your piece of art hangs in the Capitol building for a year.
That's so exciting. We have a lot of amazing artists and a lot of really talented kids in our school. Our next question is going to come from another really talented person. Ryan, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. What is the hardest part to making and passing laws?
Well, probably the hardest part of making and passing laws right now is just how divided we've become. And it's become a lot easier to point out why something's wrong, rather than say, okay, this is what needs to happen, and build a coalition to make that happen. But since I'm with a group of young people who have disabilities, I might highlight a piece of legislation that I've been so proud to be a part of, which is the ABLE Act. It stands for Achieving Better Life Expectancy, but it's focused on and we passed this law. It took us 7 years. It should have never been this hard to pass this bill, but 7 years, and you can save for going to college. You can save through a 529 account, and it's tax-free for going to college. And what the ABLE Act provides is a tax-free savings account for individuals with disabilities that is similar to going to college, but you could use it for your education, for housing, for employment, whatever you might need, transportation, in order to live more independently, and it's for life after high school. So that was one I was a part of, but it was really hard to get it passed, because it was hard there's thousands of bills introduced every year, and so to build the support and get this bill to be a priority bill, it took years of building support in the House, and then we had to build the support in the Senate, and then we had to get the vote in the House, and then the vote in 1 year it would pass the House, and then the next year it passed the Senate, but not the House, and it was like, and then finally, after 7 years, it passed the House and the Senate and was signed by President Obama, and then we have built, so now we have able to work, retirement. We're building on that ABLE Act. We're lifting we want to lift the age where people can qualify for ABLE accounts. But that's an example of a bill that's been hard to get passed, but really, really excited to have been a part of it.
Great. Thank you so much for that question.
You're welcome.
Our next question will be coming from Joseph Johnfrido.
Hi. TikTok's a very popular app for high school students. What makes it dangerous for people our age?
Yes, well, it is very popular. It came on the scene in 2019, and it now is the most popular app when you go to the Apple App Store.
Yeah.
The reason it is so dangerous is because it ultimately is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is it's a Chinese company. And my biggest concerns around TikTok really are more from a national security perspective, that we know that the Chinese Communist Party is using other tools to reach America. And TikTok in particular, we think about how divided we are. Unfortunately, a lot of the content on TikTok is promoting the division. Its algorithms are such that encourage the issues that are very divisive and very inflammatory and emotional. And so that is, I believe that is intentional, that is part of, I know that China has identified that we are easily fractured as Americans, and they're using TikTok to divide us. I also am very concerned about how TikTok can be used for destructive means, and I've met with too many families who've lost their kids that have participated in challenges that are, strangling challenges, or how to commit suicide challenges. That is not positive. We had a hearing. So we had a hearing this spring with the CEO of TikTok in front of the Energy and Commerce Committee. So the CEO of TikTok, and we've done this with other CEOs. The CEO of Facebook has been in front of our committee, and Twitter this spring. It was the CEO of TikTok, Mr. Chu. And right before the hearing, the day before, he released this video where he was saying, well, TikTok, we're just about inspiring joy and creativity. That's what TikTok is about. And I thought, that's what you're saying. But I don't believe you. Because I see too many examples where TikTok is being used is very destructive, and how they can influence what we believe. The FBI director, Mr. Wray, was asked in a Senate Intelligence Committee meeting this spring, could TikTok influence how Americans view if China were to take Taiwan? Right, if China were to invade Taiwan? And the FBI director, Mr. Wray, said, absolutely yes, they could influence. And we wouldn't even know it. So that all gives me a lot of concern that this is ultimately, the CEO will say, oh, this is about inspiring joy and creativity, but it really is a tool of the Chinese Communist Party to influence, to divide, and that is also very destructive to us. But that's a whole different... that's a whole new, that's a different type of warfare when you think about using a social media platform as a way to attack a nation, right? Yeah. Or its people. And so that's what we're wrestling with right now.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Connected to technological advancement, our next question is from Jonathan Jones.
Do you have any concerns about AI?
Yes, well, that's another great question. Yes, on one hand, we celebrate technology and innovation and everything that it means to us, improving our lives, what it means for individuals with disabilities, being able to communicate and all the different tools. But there's this other side of technology and innovation that it can be used in ways that's not as positive. And even AI. Yeah, AI can be, there's some, the detection of, in healthcare, there's some really, amazing ways that AI could be used to detect cancers or diagnoses in healthcare individuals. They'd be able to get these diagnoses quicker. So that's really good. But on the other hand, AI is dependent upon the collection of massive amounts of data, and how the individual could just be lost in all of that, or how data could be manipulated. There's a lot of concerns, for example, about deep fakes. And heading into the election, big presidential election in 2024, lots of conversations right now around AI and deep fakes, where you can create these videos that look and sound like somebody is actually speaking. Maybe you've done this. But it's really not that person, and how to authenticate all of that type of data. I've been working on legislation for privacy, to protect individuals' privacy online for several years now. But now, as the chairman of the committee, it's a top priority for me. Privacy and data security, and I believe that that's foundational to AI. So if companies or whoever's going to be collecting massive amounts of data, we fundamentally need a privacy law in the United States of America. Now, some states have passed laws, California and 11 other states have passed privacy laws at the state level, but we're creating a patchwork. It's conflicting at different times, which makes it hard for a business that might be operating in different states or whoever. So I believe we need a national privacy standard, data security. I believe it's foundational to protecting our privacy online with AI. I also believe we need that for protecting kids online. And so the legislation would, first of all, it would just minimize the amount of data that can be collected. You can only collect the data that you actually need for your business purpose. And then if you're going to collect beyond that, if you're going to collect location data, if you're going to collect browsing history data, if you're going to collect all this data, shopping trends, then you as the individual need to know that they need to ask your permission to do that. You need, if they have a profile on you, you need to have the right to know what that profile is. And if your data is being sold, or if it's being transferred, or where it's being sold, we need to be protecting individuals' personal data. So I'm working on that. The legislation we are working on right now, and this is bipartisan. This is not a partisan issue. This is very bipartisan. We passed the bill out of committee last year, 53-2, and we're continuing to work bipartisan, but it would prohibit the tracking of kids online, the targeting of kids, those under the age of 17, just prohibit the collection of sensitive data on kids. There's so much data being collected on us individually and on on all of us, including kids, that you don't even know that how they're collecting all this data. I believe that this is critical, very important that we get this law passed. And I'm working with Senator Cantwell in the Senate on it. So she's the chairman of Commerce Committee in the Senate. And Senator Ted Cruz from Texas is the lead Republican. And then I'm working with Frank Pallone, who was the chairman before me on energy and commerce. He's the Democrat. So we're working on this together. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get something to the House floor within weeks.
Has there been any outreach trying to inform users of apps and all that kind of stuff that they should not click through the terms and agreements? Because I believe many apps like request really information that don't make sense, like your location, and they kind of just scroll through it, or kids who don't know what they're clicking and agreeing with. Is there any sort of solution that you prompt as of right now?
That's a very good question. And this legislation would address some of those, where you would, the prompts would have, that instead of you having to opt in, or right now you really don't have a choice. If you want to,
if you want the app, you agree.
You have to agree. And so this is empowering the individual more. The legislation would. I'm also looking at a public service campaign. Legislation that would call for a public service campaign to raise awareness and educate kids and people in general as to the social media, the apps, and some of the dangers that are involved. Even with screen time, we're learning more about how detrimental hours and hours on the screen is. But we all, our lives have just been transferred over to the screen. We just, so much of our lives are dependent upon this, on our phones or on screens. But so that is something that I'm working on, and might be something I need to work with you on, get your input on.
Okay, well, I'm always here to talk after. Shifting gears a bit to one of our more main focuses, we have a question from Ella Bodie.
Hi.
Hi, Ella Bodie.
What do you wish people knew about people with Down syndrome?
Well, thank you for that question. And Ella, you told me that you and Cole, our son, went to the Guild School together, which I think is pretty amazing. We need to get you guys connected again. It's great to see you. And what do I wish people knew about those with Down syndrome? When Cole was first born, I wanted to change the name. That was the first thing. Was like, what? Who came up with Down syndrome, right? Because Cole has been such a positive in our lives, and he brings us a lot of joy and enthusiasm. But then I read the story of Dr. John Landon Down, who was this amazing, I think he was a pharmacist, but he was the one who really went to work helping individuals with Down syndrome. He was the one who first even identified the characteristics that we now know as Down syndrome. So maybe we should call it Dr. Down syndrome or something, so people know even the name. Dr. Down was quite a guy. And I would want people to know that it's the most common chromosome abnormality. It's a duplicate 21st chromosome. There's 20, each one of us there's 23 pairs, and Down syndrome, Dr. Down syndrome is the the most common chromosome abnormality. That's what it is. Those with Down syndrome are born with a duplicate 21st chromosome. And because of that, there's some characteristics that are associated with Down syndrome. And I want people to know that those with Down syndrome have hopes and dreams just like every one of us, and passions and desires, and want to have friends and live life to the fullest, and that they just want to be given a chance to be included, like most everyone. I think that's what I'd want people to know. Is there anything I missed?
No.
It's great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
What a beautiful message that I hope everyone listening can really connect and relate to. Our final question from Mr. Shelba's class will be from Dre Shelp.
Hello. My question is, if you could pass any law to help people with disabilities, what would it be?
Well, it's hard to pick just one. I mentioned the ABLE Act, and I was so excited to be a part of the ABLE Act, and we're continuing to build on the ABLE Act, so that's really important. There's a bill that I'm working on right now also. It's called QALYs, Quality Adjusted Life Years, and that is to prohibit QALYs within our healthcare system. And this really came to the forefront during COVID, when there were policies put forward that would have discriminated against individuals with disabilities as far as getting access to healthcare. So that's another really important one. I'm also working on eliminating sub-minimum wage, which means individuals with disabilities are paid less than minimum wage for work in certain settings. And I am the lead Republican. Again, this is bipartisan legislation to phase out the sub-minimum wage in the United States of America, and to phase out these sheltered employment, sheltered workshops. I think they were well-intentioned at the time, but I think in today's world that it's time to phase them out. Oftentimes, kids, instead of learning a skill and then being able to get into the workforce, individuals get stuck in these sheltered workshops. And in today's employment settings, there's so many more opportunities for individuals with disabilities to have a job, part-time or full-time. And we need to focus on getting the training, the support, the technological, sometimes it might be a job coach through AI or adaptive technology that will help individuals work. So all that to say, I want to focus, if I could do one thing, it would be to open up more opportunities for individuals to work. And those employers who have embraced hiring individuals with disabilities, they'll testify that it's been a very positive experience on them and their other workforce. That a lot of times individuals with disabilities are more excited to have a job than others, and they show up on time, ready to go to work. They do their best every day. They want to learn. They want to continue to advance. So there's a lot that the rest of the world can learn from that.
That's amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure their experiences have given them a whole new appreciation of the world that we see, and that's really a really good message that you have, that you're trying to send there.
Thank you. Thank you. I think if Cole has taught me anything, it's that it's the value and the dignity of every person, and to really celebrate what each one of us can do. Sometimes with disabilities, we get focused on the disability versus the ability. So let's focus on the ability, and we all have different abilities. And that applies to all of us. So let's focus on that, celebrate what each one of us has to offer.
And that is the best message to leave off with, to leave viewers and listeners pondering, to leave everyone here in this room pondering. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I'm afraid that we'll have to say goodbye. So we appreciate you for allowing us some of your time and the opportunity for us to learn more about you, learn more about what you're advocating for, and then as well as your role in the United States Congresswoman representing Washington. So thank you everyone in Mr. Shilba's class for the amazing questions, and Mrs. Bergman's class, even though we did not get to ask any of your questions. And thank you so much for listening to Ridgeline's podcast.